Thanks, Mark.
Okay. So for me, like I said, the comet was a thrill for me. In some ways, it was a makeup for missing out on the eclipse because for whatever reason, I never made it out there to see the eclipse back in 2017. So I made every opportunity to see the comet. And after our last club meeting on the 13th, I went out to Peck Farm where we normally have our star parties. And that evening, I was able to see the comet with the naked eye, sort of with no problem. I also used binoculars, but it was a lot easier to see with the naked eye on the 13th. When we were there, the subsequent days after that, on the north side of the street this time with myself and Mark Wagner, we still actually could see the comet naked eye once we were able to first spot it with the binoculars. When like you said, Mark, when you know where to look, it was easy to see it. This particular image that I'm showing was taken with the 55 millimeter prime lens on a tripod with my Sony A7. And this was over 100 images that were 1.6 seconds at ISO 800. And it was stacked in Sequator and post-processed in Photoshop. And it was quite a bit of processing. It wasn't a 15-minute job.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah, it took quite a bit. And my whole goal when I was processing this image was to try to get the blue ion tail.
Well, you did.
Yeah, you succeeded that, yeah.
I'll show a little bit how I did that in the rest of the presentation. But again, this is the Deep Sky Stacker version of the comet that was taken with the Astrotech telescope with the same camera. This was only 38 images instead of over 100 images, but both of the stacks had 20 flats and or 10 flats and 20 darks to do the stack to go along with the 100 or so images that I took with the camera. So I first tried to image the comet with the 55 millimeter lens. I got this image, then I went to the Astrotech telescope to try to get a 400 millimeter version of the comet. So this is Deep Sky Stacker, and this is the final image I was able to get from a Sequator stack through Photoshop. And I did a subsequent picture to this of the nucleus. And this is a zoom in of that previous image. And I think it shows a little bit of detail around the nucleus and the coma. You can see, well, a little detail coming off the head there going into the tail. So
It shows the turbulence very well.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's the turbulence. Yeah. And I haven't seen many images like this. You always see the big full image of the comet. So I thought this was interesting because it did show, well, the turbulence, I guess, is what I was looking for. So my plan was to show a little bit about how I processed this image in Photoshop. This is the output that you get with Sequator, that I got with Sequator, using 38 images with 20 darks and 10 flats. No, this is without any darks or flats.
Yeah.
So you can see on the edge here where you've got the vignetting, where where you know, the flats and the darks are supposed to take care of that. And you can see down here at the bottom there was a satellite that went through down here at the bottom of the picture. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but right there was a satellite that went through. It turned out to be that was on one frame that at the time I processed this image, I didn't know which frame it was. So I removed that with Photoshop, which I can show a little bit later. This is the same stack, only this time this is with the darks and the flats. You can see that the vignetting is kind of spread out to the edge a little bit more, and it's a little bit flatter. But here you can clearly see the ion tail, and you can get an idea of how spread out the tail really is, especially this area right around here. So I was focusing, when I was processing in Photoshop, I was focusing on trying to bring that out and also enhance the ion tail. So I was going to open Photoshop and show very briefly how I do that. So let me, okay, so I've got these, this is the image loaded in Photoshop. And the first thing I do is, wait a minute, the first thing I do is make a copy of the background so that whatever changes I make, I don't destroy the original image. So the first thing I would do is, even though the image is flattened a little bit here, I still would crop the image anyway and rotate it to its correct orientation. So I was going to demonstrate that rather quickly. So there's the crop. The image rotation, it needs to be rotated 180 degrees, and then the horizontal image would be flipped. And so there is the image that I sort of would start with. And I can show real quick what I would do from this point on. I would actually look at the levels at this point and try to darken the background. You can see that if you go to the black pip over on the left-hand side here, you can darken the background. And I think Paint Shop Pro, GIMP, and many other programs has levels and curves and those types of functions. So you could either adjust the darkness on the red, green, blue channels, which are combined, or what I started doing is go to the individual channels and try adjusting them individually and actually possibly bring more color out. So for me, the background here is kind of red. So I wanted to go to the red channel and try to reduce the red to see what that would do. And you could see it kind of gave it like a greenish blue hue. And from there, I would select the green channel and sort of do the same thing. And this is about where I would end up on my first run through on levels. And Andy had mentioned that he's got Astronomy Tools action set. And what that is a set of actions that are in Photoshop that when you select some of these actions, it will automatically go through a bunch of steps. I think they're really macros is what I think they are.
Yeah.
So I can show real quick what some of those are. Like I think Andy mentioned the local contrast enhance, which is right here. And so before I do that, let me make a copy of this background. So I'll call this levels so I keep track of where I'm at. And so here I'm going to run the local contrast enhancement on a copy of the layer with the levels adjustment. And so you just select the contrast enhancement and click the play button. And you can see over here, it's adding and deleting layers as it's doing its processes. So by unchecking the eyeball, you can see what kind of a change it made. And I can tell that it made a very slight change. I don't know if you guys can see it when I zoom in there, but it's a very slight change. Let me do it again here. I'll do it a third time. So again, you can see kind of the layers on the lower right-hand side here that gets created. So now you can see that this is markedly different than the previous image, right? The previous layer.
Sure
And you
can.
can see the scratches are kind of like showing up here a little bit more. So from there, what I would do is go into levels again, and you can see that you have nothing to gain by adjusting the darkness here, because you know, it's already, the histogram is already all the way over to the left-hand side of the screen. So what I would do here is do a topaz denoise. If I do that, it's going to bounce me out of the program, and it would sort of disrupt the continuity here. So let me just go into my this is my real PowerPoint, or my real Photoshop presentation, where I've made these different adjustments with these layers. It's similar to what I previously showed you, and I thought that I can step through some of these layers and try to explain what it is that I did. So here this layer had the levels adjusted and the astronomy tools action set actions were applied to this layer, and it was things like local contrast enhancement, enhanced deep sky objects, and you can kind of see what it did to the previous layer. And it's kind of noisy here a little bit. So this is the layer that was produced after I ran it through the Denoise AI, the Topaz software. And you can see that it really smooths out the background quite a bit. So it made kind of a huge difference. And the scratch, the satellite streak that went through here has kind of been removed. From that layer, I went and I made a curves adjustment, and what that is you go in adjustments, you do curves, and the adjustment that I think everybody is talking about here is really you make it lighter, and you can see by doing that adjustment the whole picture is a lot lighter. Well, when you do that like 3 or 4 times, you end up with this picture, which is really washed out, but it brings out some of the detail of the comet a little bit, and it's bringing out more of the gassy details that I was looking to get, because I'm looking to try to maintain this ion tail along with this this nebulosity over here from the tail. You can see from this layer that after you lighten it up like this, when you go back and look at levels, you've got a little bit more room to play with here. And so by adjusting the darkness of the levels back down again, I was able to get this image out of that. So from that, I went back and I did another curves 3 times I went to the well one more time, as it were, and I got this image. Then I went back and did the levels, only this time, instead of darkening the image, I tried to enhance the blue color of the image, and I ended up with this. So the final part of the first step of creating this image was to take this adjustment and then set the levels darker again using the levels command. And I ended up with this, which is starting to get to be a pretty good image, I think.
Yeah.
So the second part is, so you take this with all of these layers and you do something called flatten it, which essentially compresses all of these layers into a single image. And that's what I have down here in the background. And then you use this as I use this as a stepping off point to make more adjustments. So Andy had mentioned that one of his programs that he uses is AstroFlat Pro, and this is a flattener through the same folks that make Astronomy Tools Action Set. They also have an AstroFlat Pro program, and just like flat frames, this will flatten the image a little bit. And this is the effect that was had by applying the AstroFlat Pro with the settings that I had. From that, I went into a piece of software called Topaz Studios. Again, I'm picking on Andy because he mentioned that he has Topaz Denoise AI, and that is one of the multitude of programs that Topaz manufactures. They have Topaz AI, Sharpen AI, they have Topaz Studio, which has a brief version of all of these functions within this one this one program, this one filter, if you will. And so I made some subsequent adjustments to the image with Topaz Studio. It was darkening it a little bit. So then I almost had the image that I really wanted, because I'm now starting to see a little bit of the blue ion tail here, and a little blueness on the nebulosity of the comet tail, which I wasn't really looking for, but it was there, and I wasn't really gonna fight it so much. So then I did something I learned about recently called dodging. And Bob Butwell, if you're here, you maybe can give a brief description of what dodging and burning is, because I only know what it is within Photoshop. I don't really technically understand what it is as far as the old Lightroom and
those of us who have
the old darkroom process.
yeah, those of us who have gotten our fingernails wet with hypo know the process of you put a negative in an enlarger and shine light down onto a photographic paper. You will get darken areas that are too light and too dark. So there is dodging and burning was the terms that were invented many, many years ago, where you would dodge the light by putting a lollipop between the enlarger and the paper and cast shadows to prevent it from getting dark. And then there was burning, which you'd poke a hole in a piece of paper the size of a quarter or a $half and burn in a couple of areas that were too light. And that's the origin of the terms dodging and burning. Started back with Ansel Adams and those guys. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, thanks a lot. It's better than I could have done. So all I know is Photoshop has a function called dodging, and the way I understand it is it will bring details like this comet ion tail. It'll like enhance what's already there. So I see a little bit of blue. I want a lot more blue. And so I use the dodge function to get this out of it. So you can see that it really made everything pop right there, but the background didn't really get changed at all. So what my note is here is this next layer says dodge copy. So I don't know if I really made a copy of it or something else, but this was the final image by doing another dodge layer on top of the previous one. And that was how I created this image. And actually, if anyone wants to try to do it themselves, they have an opportunity, because the online forum that I'm on, that I frequent, is not Cloudy Nights. It's called the Sky Searchers, and it's on the skysearchers.com. It used to be astronomyforum.net, and it's now the Sky Searchers. And what they have is kind of a cool monthly contest. It's not even really a contest, it's an exercise where they have astral processing, monthly astral processing challenge is what it is. And the next one that they have up is going to be the TIFF file that I showed you, which was my output from Sequator. And they're going to have that to let people download it and try to post-process it like I just tried to demonstrate and see what you can do with it. So that's my talk. That's how I created the image.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Sure.
Are all the Topaz things plugins or are they really programs?
They're really programs,
Oh,
but
okay.
yes, let me go over here and show you under the filters. You can see under Topaz Labs, they have an Adjust AI, Denoise AI, Mask AI, which is a real fancy masking tool, Sharpen AI. They have Topaz Studio. And actually, why don't I run Topaz Studio real quick? I won't really make any changes, but I'll just kind of show you a little bit about what it does.
Just
Well,
a
I'm
quick note that the Topaz, I use the Topaz Denoise on my, like, our pictures from Hawaii, and it cleaned them up beautifully. So it's for everything.
Right.
Well, no. Does it require Photoshop?
No. You can run it separate or in
Okay, good.
Photoshop. Either way.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
So,
Some of us troglodytes refuse to participate in the business model of Adobe, and so we don't use Photoshop.
I got you. But I thought you might want to see all the different options that it has.
Yeah,
here.
no, I do. I
If
find
you
it
go
very,
if you go to the Topaz site and the site of your favorite photo processor, they mention it and how it links. Some of them you have to exit your program, run the standalone program, and then come back. But most of them, like what's happening here in Photoshop, it's an actual call to the program, handing it an image. It then hands the image processed when it's finished.
yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
I just was using my other screen to look at their website, and I couldn't find any information on what it actually was. It was all just download and buy.
Yes, well, you have to go to the user forums to get that kind of information, and it's very well hidden. I'm not really clear on it either,
No,
but they claim that it works with Affinity. I haven't seen anything about Paint Shop yet, but I haven't been looking for Paint Shop, so you can let us know.
well, when you go to the Topaz Labs website, there's an option that you can try it for free for 15 days.
Yeah. No, I'll give that a whirl. Thank you, Greg.
Okay. So one last thing I sort of forgot is that I finished on step 2, but step 3 really quick is I've got a program called Star Spikes. So I added star spikes to my image to kind of spruce it up a little bit. And then the scratch right here,
Yeah, how come I came back?
I removed the scratch with Topaz Studio. It's got a really good healer function. So, and that's the final image. So,
Very good.
Yeah, very informative.
Nice,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Really nice.
Well done, Greg.
well, thanks. I worked on it a couple times and crashed and burned many. I hope I didn't crash and burn this time.